Place and
Our clerk has asked us to speak loud tonight so that all will catch our voices. Well, first thing we do is have pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next thing we'll do is have the roll call.
All right. Chairman Ames.
Here.
Commissioner Bees. Here. Commissioner Carlson.
Here.
Commissioner Hapla.
here.
Commissioner Jorgensen.
Here.
Commissioner Carroll.
Here.
Commissioner Lewis. Commissioner Lewis. Not present. Mayor Pilon. Here. City Planner Stockman.
Here.
And also present is the City Administrator Lehner and Deputy Clerk Natalie Johnson. Roll call is called, sir.
Okay, thank you. We have a meeting policy, so the clerk want to make a comment about that?
I believe that anyone that is public that wants to come up, everyone can speak for 2 minutes. Is that correct?
Yes. We have a 2-minute
That
limit.
is the meeting clause.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just clarification, this is a public hearing, that doesn't apply to public hearing.
Comply with public hearing.
That's our open mic on the city, but on a public hearing, people can get up, we ask them to make their statements concise. If there's a difference of opinion, we ask people to alternate with a pro and a con, and nobody can speak twice before everybody who's wanted to speak to it has spoken the original time.
Okay.
But we do allow that, the reason for a public hearing is to get the input, so that varies from a typical meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Clarification.
The next thing we're going to have is approve or amend tonight's meeting minutes agenda of September 26th, 2023. Somebody like to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda, please.
Commissioner Pearl made the motion. Someone like to second it?
I'll second.
Commissioner Bees seconded. Any further discussion? Now we'll call a vote. We'll say aye. For? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. As you see in our note, we got our minutes from the August meeting have not been completed. We're ready to approve with for October's election. We'll have them. The first thing we're going to do is open the first public hearing. The first public hearing is consideration of approval of variance to allow placement of 3,200 square feet accessory building within the front yard of an existing developed with residential property. Pin numbers 33, 33, 25, 21, 0011. What we do is ask our planner now to present the sheet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicants are here, Eric and Kristen Moen. They're proposing a new accessory structure. They've been thinking about it for quite some time. I've been working with them on placement of the building. They do reside on a corner lot. They're off of 188th Lane, just west of Nowthen Boulevard. Their property is a corner lot, like I said, and somewhat irregular in shape. It also has a drainage easement on the parcel. So the tricky factor with this lot is that the actual front of the lot is the xenolith side, because that's the side that has the least width on a public street. But the perceived front is 188th Lane because that's where their house faces and from which they gain access. So the variance is allowing this structure basically within the front yard but it appears to be the side yard based on the orientation of their home. So, in the last year or so, the city did change the ordinances to allow an 800 square foot structure in front of the house, provided it meets certain criteria. But they are wanting to maximize the square footage, which is 3,200 square feet for this size of a parcel, between 2.5 and 5 acres. So even if they had attempted to place the building on the other side, it still would have been slightly forward of the house and needed a variance in that regard too. So I think they've done a good job of citing it. They're all the way back to the 20-foot setback on the south side of the property, and they were able to maintain 160 feet or so from the center line of Zenolith. The minimum setback would be 120. So it's nestled back there on their lot. It will appear, it will coordinate with their home. They're gonna actually reside their home eventually. So in the kind of gray tones. But this is a graphic of the setbacks for the front yard in red and the perceived front yard in blue. So right in this vicinity here is where they're proposing that building. This is an enlarged diagram showing how their new driveway will connect with their existing driveway. And this photo is a site looking toward the building site. And this is a shot from the road that shows the excess number of trees on this side of the property. They've got a little chicken coop on that side. And there's a bit more of a drop over here. And this is an aerial photo showing the topography. They did bring in fill, it looks like, or regraded to raise up the building pad originally. So down here, will require some grading for the proposed structure, but I think there's been a lot of thought that's been put into it. And then lastly, our office looks at or wants to be sure that what they're doing is not taking up the backup septic site that's required for each parcel. And their current site is in this location. It'll be just west of the proposed structure. It's out in here. So they do have room closer to Zenolith to build a backup system if they need to. Or they could also eventually do soil borings elsewhere on the site if they wanted to put it on the other side, for instance. So, our office does recommend approval of this variance, subject to the conditions as outlined in your findings of fact. Thank you.
Does the applicants want, do you have anything to say?
I don't think so. Liz does such a great job.
Will the clerk verify the legal publications and mailings and postage of the leave?
I can verify that, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I sent those.
Okay. Now, does anybody from the planning and zoning have any questions they'd like to ask the applicants now? Okay, what we'll do is there anybody in the public that would like to make a comment to this request that they have for this application? All kinds of opposition. No, I went and looked at the lot, and it's gonna be a lot of work, and therefore, a lot of field they're gonna have to put in there, but where's placed there, is the ideal place for it's really gonna look nice when you have it done. And from the road, probably, if you look real close, you'll be able to see it, but when you ride by, you probably won't be able to see it, because it's quite a ways off now. The road that was in front of the house. Actually, there's no other place you can put it. There's no room. Do you have any questions of line of voting?
No, I mean, I looked at it as well, and you know, directly to the north, there's another property that has similar constraints, and they already have a building there, so it seems to fit.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Pickle.
Yeah, I think it's a good location. It seemed like the, when driving by, it looked like the current layout of the lot. It would make sense to put it where it's planned. And it seems more like the front yard than the actual front yard according to our ordinances. It seems like we should have some way to allow this to be done in the ordinance that makes sense without having to get a variance in the future.
The reason why there's a problem is because there's two roads going by the property. And we give variances in the past for this, when you have something like this here. The ordinance could be changed, but I don't know actually how it could be changed.
Yeah, in this case, it's kind of a technicality. You run into that every once in a while. We have given setback variances for some sheds that were tight on space, but this one does need a setback.
Ask the crowd out here, you guys got anything to say? This is your chance, opposition, or for? Seeing none, again, I'll ask the planning and zoning if there's any other comments we'd like to make. If we don't have any more, we'll close the public hearing. And I'll act upon it. We have recommendations here from our planner on this. The area's really changed since I was back in there years ago. And trees were pretty small, and I could hardly recognize it back in there now. This is part of the Jensen development I made. Yeah, I couldn't even find Jensen's place anymore. I don't even know if they live back there anymore. It's really a nice area back in there. At this time, would somebody like to make a recommendation?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Pickle?
I make a motion to approve it as written up in the findings.
Okay, we have a second to this motion.
I'll second.
Commissioner Jorgensen seconded it. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. I'll vote on. Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you guys are clear.
All right.
Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you, Liz.
We'll see you on city council on the 10th of October.
Okay.
That sounds good.
One of us will be there.
Okay.
Probably.
If you're unable, let me know, otherwise, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Don't you miss these meetings, Krista?
What's that?
Don't you miss the meetings?
I'm on the softball board now, so I.
Oh.
But yes, I miss you guys. Thank you, guys.
Okay, the next, now we'll open the second public hearing. Second public hearing has to do with, let's see. I lost my descriptions. The public hearing now is going to be in front porch variation at 8966 North Lake Road. consider the approval of variance to allow a covered front porch addition to within 6 feet closer to North Lake Road. Pin number 08-33-25-32-008. And we'll ask our planner what she has to present to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Thompson home is close to 100 years old. It's a legally non-conforming home in terms of setback, meaning that it doesn't meet current setback under the ordinance at this time, but in its day it likely did if there was any 100 years ago. It currently lies 28.08 feet from the edge of the right-of-way and 80.33 feet from the center line of North Lake Road. The applicants are asking to construct a 6-foot porch covered deck addition across the front of the house. They're near the intersection of Nowthen Boulevard and North Lake Road. This is an enlarged copy of the survey that they had done, which is a requirement for variances, showing the house is slightly tilted, but the northwest corner is 28.08 feet from this dashed right-of-way line. The actual paved street is quite a bit further into the right-of-way, since it's just a 2-lane highway. On the northeast side, they're 28.91 feet from the right-of-way. This line and with X's is their current fence line. Here's an aerial shot with the house being the closest building to the road. And this is a schematic of how the building will look with the deck addition facing North Lake Road. And then from the side, most zoning ordinances actually allow 5 to 6 foot encroachment into setback areas for entryways and porches, but the Nowthen ordinance does not. It's not too often that we see this type of request, but I do feel that it's reasonable given the existing circumstances. They did have had quite a lot of drainage problems on site. They've been working with an excavator to repair the foundations, regrade, and they're re-siding the house and everything, and want to increase this overhang on the north side of the home. This is a current shot of the front of the house from the road. You can see they're kind of in process with construction. And as you drive up to the house, there's quite a few trees screening the lot. So, again, when we review variances, we look at practical difficulties and whether or not the situation was created by the current landowner. The Thompsons bought this home. I'm sure 1 or 2 other people, they're not the original owners. And like I said, it's legally non-conforming. So then one of the other questions we asked them, is this a reasonable request? Is this something that, other people are allowed to do under the terms of the code? And the answer for that would be yes, a front porch or an entryway is very common. So, our recommendation would be to allow this variance based on the conditions as outlined in the findings. If there's any questions or discussion, I welcome that. Thank you.
Mr. Planning and Zoning, have any questions you'd like to ask the planner? Seeing none, I'll open it up to anybody in the public. Any questions you'd like to ask?
Mr. Chair, the applicant's here too, Mr. Sean Thompson.
Okay. Well, Sean, do you want to add anything to it?
No, Liz did a great job.
I forgot about it. Again, is anybody in the public like to make any comments? If not, is anybody in the planning and zoning? Pardon me? And, anybody in planning and zoning want to make any comments about this? All I have to say is Sean's got a real nice, what would you say, the buildings around there look real nice. It's really,
Put a lot of work into that place, yes.
well, I think his dad did most of it.
Yeah. We're just trying to finish it out now.
So it really looks nice. And I think putting that porch on the front will really make that house look a lot nicer too. And like you said, they've had drainage problems for many years. For people like Harold, and that used to be the old George Gann place. Most people don't remember the Ganns that were there. But anyway, if there's no more questions they want to ask, we'll close the public hearing. So we close the public hearing. Our planner has recommendations here. You probably all read them over, so you're familiar with them. Does anybody have any problem with anything? It's a variance, it's illegal the way it is, it's gonna be a little more illegal. Once that porch on, but, you try it, hopefully. It's one of those situations that they had nothing to do with it, but went back, I don't know if the Gans built that building or not, do you know?
Well, it goes back a long ways, and it was a small dairy farm, I believe is what it was before. Well, I was to an auction when the M's had it, and that's been probably 30 years ago. A long time ago.
Do that, don't you, Sean?
Oh, yeah. I know it was a tree farm, but I don't know, it must be on that.
It was a dairy farm at one time.
Yep.
The Gans farm there, it's,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I would make a motion to approve the variance, subject to the conditions written in the packet.
Okay, Commissioner Bees made the motion, would somebody like to second it?
I will second that motion.
Okay, Commissioner Pearl seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just one point of clarification, it's not illegal, it's legally non-conforming.
Oh, no, well, that's still
I don't
illegal.
want anybody saying that they got an illegal place. It's legally
It's not going
non-conforming.
the other way.
Well,
Sounds really
what's the
good.
difference?
It's just a little bit more.
But it's- right?
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Third public hearing?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just a point of order, I believe since we posted this as a 7:30 start, we can't
Oh,
really
okay.
start the public hearing until 7:30.
Okay, we'll wait another 6 minutes then.
I'll turn it off.
Start with the legalities of it, let it get done. Legal requirement.
Well, maybe while we're waiting, I'll go over the upcoming projects for next month. We have received, 2 3-lot subdivisions. One is Lystico on the corner of Nowthen Boulevard and Morris Road. And it's 3 lots plus 2 outlots. Gustafson's are off of Kingdon on the south side of Bear Lake. And that'll be 3 lots, for their family members. We also may have, well, we'll continue our discussion on the landscaping, fencing, and screening ordinance, which has been on hold for a couple months. And we may have an interim use permit for a home business that's on St. Francis Boulevard, possibly. That gentleman has a asphalt business. So that is all I'm aware of coming up at this time. Oh, yes, the M1 property, which I have to add here. 205th Avenue, was purchased, and there'll be a request to subdivide a portion of it into residential lots, and then the gentleman is asking, or will be asking for permission to change the ordinance to possibly allow assisted living in the existing Amborn residence. So that is completely up to the city whether or not that would be allowed. Currently, our ordinance says, references group homes and treatment facilities up to 6 people. Assisted living is neither of those under the state law, so it requires an amendment. The state law recently changed to allow cities to make the decision as to whether they want to allow assisted living and how many residents. Some limited at 5 or 6, with a maximum of 8 in a residence. They are now treated like, you know, a big 100-unit assisted living facility. So they're licensed by the state and have, you know, many rules to follow. So that'll be forthcoming, but before he can actually ask for the use, he has to ask whether or not the city is willing to change the ordinance. So that's what will come first. The subdivision part of it is separate. If the assisted living part is not passed, then he will either just live in the house or sell the home as another residence.
Clarify your question. When you say ask the city for an ordinance change, are you discussing it with the council or is it coming to our commission?
It will come through you as a public hearing.
Oh, it's not- Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mayor.
and just so you know, this is coming through as a request from somebody who bought property here, but it will affect the entire state, which is similar to what we had down in the southwest corner there, that people were asking for a change, but then anybody who met those same conditions would have a corner property and more commercial. If we change that from what we have, this would apply everywhere in the city.
It's a city that changed.
And so anybody who's got a property could have a group.
No, not a group.
I'm sorry, assisted living.
Thanks.
They got a group home according to the current ordinance.
Right.
This new one would be something that we don't currently have in our ordinances, because it applies to our area district, which is most of the city. We'll be making a recommendation, not a decision, a council decision, but a recommendation one way or the other, that would impact potentially the city.
So they're asking for an ordinance change?
So either the ordinance change can be initiated 2 ways, by the council, you know, or the city, and by a resident. So when it's the resident initiated request, he pays for staff costs just like, you know, these folks have, or somebody would for subdivision or something. Yeah.
And the way I understand it, that'd be classified as commercial then?
Oh, no,
So it's not changing the zone.
It doesn't.
This is just a living environment where people with traumatic brain injuries or older folks that may have had a stroke need some physical help.
Additional
So,
assistance.
and so they provide food, you know, we have meals just like any assisted living would, and then they have a nurse that issues the medication. So we'll talk more about that.
Okay, now it's legal right now, 7:30, so we'll start the public hearing. And, did we read what it was before?
No, you have to start it now.
Okay, public hearing, intern use permit on 7411 Avenue Northwest. Consider an intern use permit request to allow the outside storage of landscape contractors' vehicles, materials, and equipment for a temporary period of time. Bid number is 33-33-25-43-0011. So at this time, we'll let our planner present what she has.
Thank you. So Sharon County, who many of you may know, this is a longtime landowner in Nowthen. Her son apparently is an acquaintance of Mr. Vondelin, who has a landscape business, and he was needing a place to store some of his business items after being leasing another property in another city that was sold. So he's been in there, or was in the process of moving in this summer, sometime between May and August. The May 2nd area photo shows no items being stored, so to speak, and then the August 31st area photo shows everything there. This family thought it was acceptable to lease an acre to Mr. Vondelin, and since we've talked, he's willing to reduce that area in size to about a 1/4 acre. It does require an interim use permit under our home extended business regulations. The current location, well, I'll go to the area photo. So the county property is down here on 181st, just west of Nowthen Boulevard. All the existing vehicles and equipment are along the eastern boundary. So he had originally talked with the owner about kind of having this east end for his items. But since talking to him and him learning that there is a 100-foot setback, he's willing to move things over and kind of reduce what he has. He was originally planning to auction off some of these trucks, mostly pickup trucks and some of his snow removal equipment, plows and such. There are currently 3 containers on the property, which are only allowed under our ordinance for 6 months. So I took a look at the distance of the proposed storage area from existing homes and potential homes. Actually, there's a new landowner, the Howards, right to the east here, which would probably be closest to what they're proposing, although I don't know the exact proposed location of their home. But to the north, you've got about a 1,500-foot setback. And then to the south, you've got 800 feet, 615, 600 feet, and 1,100 feet to surrounding area homes. Here's some photos coming into the site, looking at the storage area from a distance. And then this shot is from Sharon's driveway, looking across the field toward the east. And here's some shots of the immediate storage area at the present time. So kind of a variety of equipment and vehicles. Many of the vehicles, or in some of the trailers, appear to be unlicensed and possibly inoperable. So we'll have to chat about that. Generally, we don't like to see inoperable, unlicensed. Ordinance really only allows 2 per property. So we want to keep that in check. And in talking with the city attorney, so the ordinance reads, it was in your report, when it references leasing of space, I believe that the original intention there was the leasing of indoor space, such as shed space, building space, but it's not defined. So in talking with the city attorney, he was saying that it is legal for them to ask for this, as our ordinance regulations are currently worded. And since Ms. Peony is the owner, Mr. Vondelin is the lessee, we can move forward with that. But we also have the ability to establish a deadline date and conditions related to the storage. So I have gone ahead and drafted findings today based on the attorney's recommendation. And I do think it's positive that Mr. Vondelin is willing to move the site slightly to get it away from the property line. I have had 4 calls related to this public hearing, so I will read some comments that I got via email for the record, and then we can talk about excuse me, the findings that I've taken a stab at. You'll see some question marks in those findings where we need to talk about it or fill in the blanks. So the first email I received states that we have been Nowthen residents for 20 years and have invested and improved our property immensely in that time. We are expecting a sizable return on our real estate investment in the future. This massive outside storage puts our home value in jeopardy. We have watched trucks and trailers and semi trucks hauling up huge containers and multiple vehicles over the summer. It was extremely loud. All of this is now visible from our outdoor recreation area. It is an eyesore and looks like a junkyard. We are not in favor of any proposed storage on the Peony property. We would recommend that it all be removed as it is in violation of the Nowthen City Code. Second email I received on the 18th of September. It says, I do not have an issue with storage of equipment and materials on this property as long as the materials are not chemical and are only rock, dirt, lumber, etc. No chemical material storage, meaning anything to kill plants, kill weeds, bugs, etc. No chemicals. Otherwise, they are fine to park their stuff there. We have many places in Ramsey doing the same thing. Buck up Nowthen. We have an animal shelter, we have a gravel pit, we have many horse and sheep and alpaca farms on either side of 181st. Farms are going away to either housing, and we need to preserve them. Yay to farmers trying to make money. Please help the farmers. Help the small landowner. No houses. Let the small landowner do something with their land.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can I ask, that was from Ramsey?
No, she was just referencing,
So we have Ramsey.
she said, we have many places in Ramsey doing the same thing, but this is a resident of Nowthen.
Basically across the road is pretty much Ramsey.
Yeah, I believe it's on one.
Yeah.
The last one I got references, the 20 to 25 vehicles out there, plus a number of trailers that do not look well maintained. Out of the ones that we could see, it appears that many have outdated license plates, and some are missing front plates. There is one trailer that has a used hot tub strapped down to it. There is a stack of bags of who knows what chemical laying in the weeds. There is a portable sprayer laying in the weeds with a half-full tank of an unknown chemical. There is a trailer with a 200-gallon tank half full of chemicals. Who knows what that is? Trailer has a missing axle in one situation, and to this person's knowledge, storage containers were not allowed. This resident wanted to verify who actually owns the equipment, and then again reiterated the need for licensed and operable vehicles and trailers. And then it is true that to use chemicals of any kind, there is a license through the state, I believe. So we had another resident with a lawn business at one point. We have made a large financial investment in our properties between me, my wife, and our other neighbors. It is disappointing that we could end up with an equipment graveyard in our backyard. I refrain from calling it a junkyard, as one man's junk is another man's treasure. But I don't think it's right that looking at it every day at sunset. Thank you. Okay, so, like I said, let's take a look at the findings and kind of talk through what you are feeling or wishing to see. That's the one I just brought tonight.
Was that the one?
That's the new one that I have stapled.
Before we go to that, Liz,
I'll put it there on the
would
slide.
you give us report of all the mailings have been made out to the property?
Oh, yes, yes, I did, Mr. Chair.
Okay, is the applicant here, got anything to say?
Yep, I'm John.
You what?
I'm John.
You're
John Dratzkin.
You have John Bondolin, and then Sharon Palin.
You have,
Sharon's the landowner.
do you have any comments to make before we go into this?
Well, we can make them before or after. So I mean, whichever way you guys would like.
Okay, maybe if we go into what the planner has there first, because tonight's the first that we've got a hold of all these facts that she's got down there. They've been working on that, and she talked to our lawyer. So, somebody, I don't know if all of you got a chance to read them yet or not. But we'll let,
Okay, you want me to just kind of,
yeah, go over it. the whole thing.
so, based on the attorney's interpretation, we do need to allow the lease, but it is recommended that we establish a deadline. So this is not an open-ended interim use permit. When it is an interim use permit, we can establish a deadline. It's a conditional use permit that we cannot. So, the first and the second page are copies of what our ordinance requires for conditional and interim use permits, and then the home extended businesses. It specifies when they moved in their equipment, and that he's willing to reduce this area down from 1 acre to a quarter acre. Then on the third page, similar, is a continuation of extended home occupation requirements. And then on the fourth page is where the recommendation begins, where we can legally establish conditions as part of the IUP. So, in other words, the first one is referencing hours of operation. He may not, from what I hear, even come and go daily from this location, but I think it would be best to limit his coming and going, if he does need to do that, to kind of regular office hours, 7 or 8 in the morning to 5 or 6 at night. So I left that blank so we could get Mr. Bondelin's input as well. Do you have any comment on that, hours?
Well, as much as everyone, thinks the hours, I mean, I've only been up there once per month. So one day, I just drive up there. So as far as the timing of that, I'm not necessarily worried about it. I like to sneak up in the evening, because obviously it's after work and stuff, but.
Well, the way I have it written, that you wouldn't be able to move equipment coming and going,
Yep, and I'm not saying
is that okay? Okay.
none of that equipment is designed to move from site. So I'm not coming up there to move equipment out.
Oh,
You see what I'm saying? It's meant for storage, straight storage.
okay, so what is your plan, if I might ask, as far as, did you find an auction house to deal with, or I know you were working on that?
Right, and I'm working with the company of the K-Bid, which is
Okay.
an online auction house that is in Elk River,
Mhm.
and we're working out things.
So like is the suspected timeline for, do you have any idea for getting rid of what you want to sell?
I would like to have the stuff in November be my auction date, that I then get to remove a lot of that stuff. I'm still working with my banker, and I can just do a little presentation to explain where I come from and what's going on there.
Yeah, if you want to stand up, you may, sure.
So, been in business since before '04, doing lawn care. I know everyone likes to call it landscaping, but I stay away from that terminology because that means you always want to be moving dirt, hauling stuff and stuff. It's not that kind of activity that I do. I do lawn care and we do snow plowing. So most of the vehicles up there are going to be listed as snow removal equipment. We were in Blaine in a commercial site. I think this goes 10 years back now. And Blaine liked it when we got containers to be our fences, so we would shield everything. And then we'd paint the containers green so that they wouldn't be eyesore. You're not seeing blue or, what I'm saying, different colors on your horizon. It's a dark green, looks like a tree-ish kind of color, covers everything up. When we were there then, we got out of there and then moved our working facility one place and then just needed a storage facility for the rest of the equipment. And I know a lot of people are like, well, why are you hanging on to all this equipment? Trust me, my wife beats on me all the time. It's not my idea. I am in litigation with a couple companies that I had purchased, and I'm required to hang on to equipment until those settle. So that's where a lot of this comes. Now, one of the litigations have come to term, I have won, and that's why I can sell most of that stuff. So you're thinking all the pickup trucks on the top, all those white ones, and I'll just call it 8 of them. Those all came with that first purchase problem. And now the banker, the lawyer and stuff can release the liens back to me so that I can then get rid of that equipment. I don't have to hold on to it anymore. Now I have multiple friends up on this side of Nowthen, 20 and north, and they recommend that I come up here. Now, I tried buying property this spring. Apparently did not work out. I was not the high guy. So, in the place I have just the storage stuff at. That guy then turned around and sold his land. Somebody finally hit his magic number. He said he was never gonna sell because he ran his business out of that property. Somebody must have dumped a lot of money on him. So he gave us 6 months. He's like, you gotta go. And so we were, like I say, this spring then, looking for places to go. We had a couple opportunities in this neighborhood. Same with the ones just east of us, all the way over to East Bethel. Nothing seemed to work out. During that process, I had contacted Liz on the light side. We didn't get into details, but just about having, because we'd be having the exact opposite. I'd be asking for building of a large building, had I got my property that I wanted. We'd be doing that, and I would then be pushing everything in there. So we were under the understanding, and like I say, if we don't check into it, you don't know. Under the understanding that she could have some stuff stored out there. We knew that we were going to be reducing the size of some of the stuff, but just needed temporary storage for non-use equipment. Now, somebody in the emails listed that those, we'll call them fertilizer tanks, have liquids in them. There is no liquids in any of those tanks. I can confirm that. You got the big one that's on the trailer, that was in one of your pictures. And then there's a smaller one that's sitting on the ground that is empty too. It had water in it. And there it is, in the top left there. Yep, that's the big one. That's the 300-gallon unit. And there's nothing in it. That thing's dry. And then the red one is in the bottom right. Yep, right there. And that, if anything, just has water in it. That was given, again, that's part of the litigation. That one's broken and doesn't work, so I don't have to, can't do anything with it. So, again, you know, a lot of those yellow plows down there, those all come with the first litigation, so I want to get rid of all that. That tree chipper on the right side. Oh, yeah, I guess on the left side there, yep, that's gone. Yeah, it's on both sides. The two little tractors I'll have to hang on to a little longer.
This is.
Yeah, the blue one and the little white one, yeah. Yeah, and I unfortunately got stuck with this head hot tub. I know you should have dumped that. I think you could dump them at the dump for $1.25. I should have done that before I brought it up. But again, a non-use item. Big enclosed trailer is good to go. Like, so when you look at the whole thing, half of it's easily ready to go, right? So that's what I'm gonna be trying to get rid of for November. The rest of it, like I said, all this stuff is spread out, so it looks like it takes a lot of room. Every place I've gone to has usually given me an acre, but I don't need an acre. Like, I can stuff that stuff all into a tiny corner. So now that I can get rid of half the stuff, I only need a quarter acre. I would like to have a quarter acre, what I would consider in the red circle-ish, up by the barn. I would like to keep the 3 containers to be the screen, paint those green to hide the effects of anything that you'd be able to see. And then we'd be down to just what I would consider a handful of things. I'm thinking, like the sheet said when me and Liz talked, she lists the bobcats, but I put the bobcats inside the containers. So again, they don't, you know what I'm saying? They're not gonna be outside, they're not gonna be seen. When we moved everything out there, it is still set up in what I consider a moving phase. It's all spread out, because that's how we picked it up, that's how we loaded it, that's how we transported it, and that's how we got it off. We never got up there to finalize, make everything what I consider look pretty before this stuff all started coming down. So then I've just stayed away from up there because there's nothing I can do. Everything's up there that I want. I now know what I can get rid of. The lawyer told me last month that I've already talked to the banker, and he's supposed to actually call me tomorrow for my titles, to get rid of half that stuff. And so I just want a little area, quarter acre, use the containers as my screen, and just hide the stuff up there for a little while longer. Hopefully, I know there's still a couple properties out and about. Nothing's as pretty as the stuff that was this spring, but looking for short term so that I can find a place then and then continue on that way. I just don't want anyone to think those, because the containers become a necessity for the screening. And I guess I'm just that way because that's the way Blaine did it. Just made a nice, easy, beautiful barrier, and they were painted. Anybody have any questions that offhand they want to ask? I just want to make sure that, I'm not bringing materials up there, I'm not on site for anything, I'm not storing stuff. No chemicals on that site. All that stuff is at the other places. These are just straight vehicles that are looking for storage.
Okay, thank you. With this, planner here go on with the findings of fact that we got in front of us here.
So, Mr. Ronlin, you read the findings.
Yep.
Are you okay with that November 15th date? I think because the containers are not permitted more than 6 months.
Are there extra copies back there?
Yeah, there are extra copies of the findings on the back table if anybody wants to.
I got mine.
Okay. I mean, if we don't get the containers out before winter, then we're pretty much stuck with them, until spring. I don't know how the commission feels.
Right, and that's why I bring up, I use them as a screening. If you guys don't want to use them as a screening, then obviously getting rid of them is the way to go.
So, you'd be okay then if we're talking hours, just 8 AM to 6 PM?
Yep.
5 days a week, Monday through Friday, not weekends. If and when it comes time to move.
Right, come November, say we have our auction, that would be a different environment, but yes.
Did they come to your site or do you have to haul them to the auction?
They're looking at selling them on site and not bringing them over to their site.
So people would be able to come and look at them? Or do they just?
They don't necessarily have to. We could, and again, this gets into the whole thing. I have not planned on anybody coming out the site to see anything. Anybody who's buying any of those items, it's like buying a generic piece. You know what it is, and you know what it does. There's no reason to come look at it.
Okay. So, if, they were to ask you then to remove the containers and basically come into compliance and, reduce numbers of items, November 15th is reasonable to you?
Right now, that's sounding very reasonable. Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mayor.
can I just ask, maybe since it's a public hearing, to get the other input here before you go through all the
Sure,
details?
Sure.
Because then it might weigh in on the residents, weigh in before you go to specific details.
Okay.
Would be all right?
To what?
To let the residents speak up before you go into the details, and then have to make the residents backtrack. Because the residents here that want to speak, it's a public hearing, give them a chance to speak.
Okay, we could do that. Is there anybody here who'd like to speak to this?
I would love to.
Give-
I would love
give
to.
Your name and address.
My name is Carolyn Olson, and I live to the west of this property.
Your address, please.
7361 181st and Nowthen. I am not in favor of any containers. Containers are not screens. You can't paint containers. They're, those containers have got to go. If there's a November 15th date, it has to be complied with. I have lived all summer long. It was Mother's Day weekend when there was a truck coming up with a hot tub. There was a truck coming up with a trailer with six plows on it. That's not during working hours, that's during Mother's Day when I've got company over. There was semis coming up the driveway. I mean, it was non-stop noise all summer with this stuff coming up. It's ridiculous, and now these containers are right by my bonfire area. It's not screening, it's not done neatly, if there's vehicles unlicensed, it's ludicrous. We've got property, we've got expensive, valuable property. There's a person here that has paid $500,000 for property that wants to build a house. We can't look at this. It's not storage, it's not outdoor storage. We don't want it to be a quarter-acre storage. We don't want it moved over or a setback. It's like it's her home. It's her home. This is our property. This isn't for someone to come up here because you can't find other storage property. Like, you'll have to buy something, find something. Like, this is a residential area. We're living here. These are our homes. You can't, and the distraction and the noise and the semis and the bobcats and the plowing of the road, it's been all summer long. I've been really patient until I see containers that I'm like, it's beyond ridiculous. It just is ridiculous that this is storage. It's not a storage area. It's not this property is not storage. We have beautiful place in Nowthen that we're all living in. You have beautiful property. Why you don't want to look at storage? All this stuff and trucks that don't have license plates, and it's bizarre to me. It's bizarre. And this dirt road is right so close to my property, and all this coming and going and all day long and on weekends, and I guess there was nothing put down as far as a time frame or days of the week, but it wasn't even done, it wasn't done. It's Mother's Day weekend, like I say, it's not done very respectfully of people that there's residents. You can see that my home is right there. I think it's just disrespectful of all this. And then there's a semi that comes up with these containers. There's no other way to get a container up this driveway other than a semi. Anyway, I'm really upset. I can't believe that this looks like this. And I don't want something to be passed that is a temporary thing that, oh, we didn't get it out in November, and oh, now it's here till summer, and this all looks all parked and all parallel, whatever, but we know what things look like when it's left unkept, and there's nobody gonna mow this, there's nobody gonna take care of this. Weeds grow like crazy. It's not a storage area. And this attorney, whatever this, it's so vague, whatever this finding is, that it should have been indoor storage or for a pole barn or a storage area. Well, there's no indoor storage here. This isn't indoor storage. And I really can't. There's no containers to be painted to be a screen. Containers are containers. Storage containers are storage containers. They're not screens. I don't want to look at it. This potential neighbor doesn't want to look at it, but has now purchased a very expensive piece of property. It's like, so anyway, that's
Thank you.
stating my.
We understand your position.
Yeah, thank you.
And this is something we'll be looking at. If somebody else want to come up, just don't repeat things that she said. Have something to say.
I can't be that fired up. I can be, but I'm not. I'm definitely not going to do that. Tony Howard, and
Address, please.
yeah, she referenced my purchase was on 18288 Nowthen Boulevard, so on the property to the east. And I would say the most immediately affected by this, because yes, we were planning on building a house, actually two, and two houses, probably one for myself and one for my son, my wife. We're making it a family complex, and the reason we bought it, before we bought it, there was nothing there, right? It was just the only house in their barn, which we're okay with. And, you know, we planned on setting our house up so we could look at the sunset every night. We had an area all picked out. Now you have a storage area with less than beautiful trucks going to be parked there. Right? So who wants to look at that when you have a nice sunset and you have storage boxes and trucks and equipment? Yes, we paid $500,000, $575,000 for that property and plan on investing a hell of a lot more. So there's nothing saying that that equipment will be gone when he says it's going to be gone. It got there for a reason. He didn't ask, put it on the property. That'd be like the first red flag. Get it out of there. He didn't ask for permission. I used to be on the Andover City Council, so I know exactly what you guys are putting up with and dealing with, and appreciate everything you do. You know, one thing I looked at is your ordinance on, that might help you a little bit. Extended home occupancy shall be carried on by one or more members of the property owner's family, who shall reside in the dwelling unit with not more than one full-time or two part-time on-site employees. That's another thing that hasn't been talked about here, about employees coming back and forth. You know, you can say it to your blue in the face, but there, right there, it says in your ordinance that he can have employees coming back and forth. Okay? Then towards the bottom of your ordinance, 11-151 rental of space for storage, boats, vehicles, etc., are considered as extended home occupants, are subject to interim use provisions. So, in other words, I take that as the owner of that business the owner of the property has to own that business to have that storage facility. That's why I read it. Right? So he's not an owner. The owner doesn't belong, he doesn't own any of that property of the home. So it's non-conforming again, because he's not a resident of the property. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it goes against your ordinance in that aspect as well. So, not here to bitch, I'm just here to voice my opinion and then get it resolved, right? I hate seeing it. I go out there just about every 2 days and see what has happened out there, making sure it hasn't gotten any worse. Yeah, so I appreciate your time and appreciate what you guys do. So thank you.
Thank you. We're aware of what the ordinance says. We're aware of what the ordinance, what's in our ordinance. So we're trying to deal with this thing. We'll be dealing with this a little later on.
Okay.
Is there anybody else in the public who'd like to come up and make comments? This is your opportunity. Yes, go ahead.
Want me to come up front or?
Yeah, come right up front, give your name.
I just had a question on how did this originate? I might have come in late on this and missed it, but so how did?
Could you give your name and address?
Oh, I'm Skip Carnell and I'm at 7263 181st Avenue Northwest.
Mr. Chair,
Yes. I think-
I'll answer his question if that's okay. So it came about because we had complaints.
No, originally when you
Oh, about
parked
the
it,
leasing
was,
part?
did he communicate with you then before he brought it up the hill, or did he just?
No, what he was referencing was that he was looking at land and he called me about the ability to build a structure.
Ah,
I never spoke with him about
pulling it up.
anything about the outdoor storage.
So he just, on his own accord, brought it up the hill and parked it
Correct.
when he worked up and.
Well, he spoke with the owner.
Ah, okay. So that's a big deal, and, I mean, it starts there, it started in a lie, so that's a big deal to me. I'm not so opposed to the look, because I can't see it like she can, I can visualize what she can see. But I'm also, you talk about exiting, being in the commercial refrigeration business, I've seen so much of this going on where they got, and this is more, down sort of like Adler Steel where there's a lot of commercial. And I just don't understand why you would put it in a residential, why you wouldn't go down to a commercial area, like by Adler Steel or that kind of area where it's just strictly commercial. It doesn't fit at all. And so my question is, I'm not as opposed if he doesn't get it out on time, but the question is how do you put teeth in that to make sure he does leave and doesn't continue on squatting, much longer. So, but that's what I want to find out, how it actually starts. It did start to lie. That's not good, yeah. So, okay.
Thank you. Is there anybody else like to make comments toward this? Seeing none, we'll go on to finding the facts. Continue on that.
Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify too that, my interpretation of the extended home occupation ordinance was what Mr. Howard was saying. I feel like it requires you to be the owner and live in the house, but yet it also allows you to lease space. To me, that's contradictory. And I called the city attorney to specifically ask him that question, and he disagreed with me and said, the way it reads, you need to allow this. He says you can put an end date on it, and you can be stringent with your conditions, but you need to move forward the way it reads. If you don't want to lease any, address any leasing situations in the future, you may change your ordinance, but not until after this request is decided. Now, I wholeheartedly believe that the intention of the leasing section was intended to be indoor space for leasing of structures, because there were one or two older conditional use permits from many years ago where buildings were leased. So it was probably geared to that. But because space is not defined, that complicates it. So as I tried to draft these, like I said, November 15th, well, let me go back. So the process is, if we are to set a date, an end date, and first a compliance date, if it's November 15th and he has to have those vehicles out of there, and he doesn't, then the interim use permit won't go into effect until he is in compliance on that date, if that's what we set as your compliance date. If at any time you violate the conditions, Ms. Paoni is the responsible party. She will receive letters and citations based on Mr. Vondelin's actions. So they have to be intricately, both understand exactly what's being said here or recommended, okay? So the best we can do at this point, even though I don't agree with the attorney looks out for the city and, prevents any trips to court that are unwanted. So we don't need any lawsuits. We respect him, and You know, unless there's something different that comes up between now and the city council meeting, that's an understanding.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Bring up a couple of things for clarification as we consider this. Ms. Bonlin, you said that you had painted your containers dark green to blend in. I don't see any dark green containers in there.
These are not the ones that are in the city, these ones were the ones from the other storage yard.
So you have
So
other
the other storage
containers.
yard, I didn't have to do that.
Okay.
And that's because that was an industrial zone, commercial storage area.
And you had mentioned you'd consider painting these to have them blend in, but sometimes in Minnesota winter, we turn white. So a dark green would look like in the winter, or a light one would look like in the summer. But the question came up here as to whether storage containers could be used as screening. We said if you get rid of these storage containers by the 15th of November, you had intended to store some of this equipment in those storage containers. Where would you store those containers in all?
They would probably be next to the trucks there.
Okay.
Assuming I don't put them out on the site.
The ordinance requires that outside storage materials, this would be 11-4-9H. All outside storage shall be screened from view. If there is outside storage for equipment used for the extended home occupation. So again, I don't know what your discussion was with the attorney, but extended home occupations may be permitted. Materials and equipment used for the extended home occupation may be permitted if such storage conforms to setback location, maximum size, the requirements for accessory structures. All outside storage shall be screened from view. And then it's also, and then goes into setbacks. If it's any closer, then I'll take fencing as well. So there need to be a defined definition of what screening would be. I don't know that containers would be sufficient for that. I think it also obviously needs clarification by the council with our attorney. Outside storage materials and equipment used for extended home occupations. And this is, we're defining this as a home occupation, but it's not the first criteria of being run by one or more members of the property owner's family. And then the other part of that is at least 9C on that, leasing space to another person. A firm requires an interuse permit must be obtained by the property owner, not the lessee. So if you're dealing with this, you're dealing with Ms. Peony, because if there's any violation, she lives there, she'd be financially responsible for it, and not dealing with Mr. Monaghan on that portion of it. So she should be speaking to the conditions, and not Mr. Monaghan, because he is the lessee. So just to clarify some of those things, make sure that, again, you've got the ordinances in front of you and the references in front of you, so that you clarify it. Should you not recommend this go forward, or if you do, what conditions you want to set?
Mr. Chair. I have a multitude of questions, but I'm going to attempt to make them pretty simple. And to piggyback off what Mr. Pilon was saying, I understand that most of the equipment and or vehicles, items on the property are not going to be used. That was his exact words. My concern is then why are they leaving the property? Why are they having a push to leave the property? How many storage yards do you actually have?
Different places?
Yeah.
No, I've just got the place I operate out of, and then one facility.
Okay. You had mentioned other storage yards, so I was wondering.
At one time, so back 5 years ago, we had multiples.
I don't know if anybody else understands what litigation is, but it can be years, months before anything is settled. Do you have any proposed answers on that?
For me, being free to get rid of all this stuff,
Yes.
2 years. I will be out.
So not short term?
No.
Okay.
Well,
So you're
yeah.
talking, 2 years is not 2 months?
Well, the 2 months is for
some of these items.
Right, for
But-
a majority of items to get removed.
And that's what my question was in regards to.
Oh, I'm
The rest of the items, how long? And now you're talking 2 years.
No. If you were asking about the litigation where I have to keep some of this stuff, under 2 years, that litigation will be solved.
Okay, so you've already started the process
Oh,
with
yeah.
this? Okay, because they can take up to 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. During,
You're not looking to stay there that long, right? You're
Well,
trying to get
again,
a place.
my friends up here had told me that, you know, I should be looking for property up here. Obviously, most people think if you're gonna have stuff, you gotta get outside the city limits, in the big cities. And I had, well, I thought I had purchased the property, but apparently that did not go through. But yeah, I'm looking to purchase and move over there if that happens prior to the litigation. By no means am I looking to stay. I don't want to cause any problems. I just need a short-term fix.
It seems like, she was just trying to help you out temporarily.
Correct. Yep, I know her son, and he knew the predicament I was in. And he's like, well, Mom could probably help you, you know, store some of this stuff. So that is how we got our foot in this path. Like I say, I don't intend on keeping anything on her property. My intention is to buy a piece of land and do my own thing. Either way, most of all this equipment is due for, what do you call it, getting rid of it, you know. So my one litigation's over, that was 4 years. So that's where I'm gonna get my titles, my lien releases from my banker. And those will go, that's what I'm shooting for November, getting rid of all those. I would like to use the containers as a screen. I thought it worked good in Blaine. If people don't want them, I mean, I get it. But it does make a nice cover so you don't have to see anything. The Howard property is at an angle where you're not gonna see anything. Not gonna have a house on that property for a year. So I'm hoping to be out of there by then. You know, we'll definitely be down to, like I say, a handful of things, 10 items.
The way I understand it, the lawyer is recommending things that we have to do. And this is why we got these findings, the facts here, we gotta deal with it in a way that's gonna be a legal way to handle it. So I think we still gotta go on and look at the rest of these findings of facts that our planner has here and deal with it.
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
With your shipping containers, you said that you stored some motorized items in them. Are they vented? That seems like a hazard to me.
Well, normally I store the Bobcats in there.
Again, is it vented? It
They
seems like a
have
hazard
vents
to
on
me.
them.
They do.
Yep. What is your concern for?
Flammable?
Okay.
Flammable. I mean, shipping containers are, in essence, made to be
Enclosed areas.
completely sealed tight.
Right, yep.
So my concern is that if you have flammable liquids inside and you have the door sealed and there is no vents actually in them or open,
Right.
you're
When-
considering.
And when people think about them, they say sealed, they mean wind, water tight by rubber seals.
Yeah.
They still have on them little vent boxes.
Not all of them do, but yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, yep.
Yes, I understand. But that's why I was asking, because
Yep.
it's concerning.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner.
So if this interim permit gets denied by the city council, what's your plan?
Well, shoot the moon after, I mean, obviously half the stuff I don't have to worry about, I'm already looking at getting rid of that. I would have to quickly try to find some other place. Which, I mean, everyone thinks, you know, that that's easy, but it's not. A lot of people that have space it's always rented for a term, and they don't know, the term never seems to line up with when I wanna move, right? Like, they'll be like, well, next spring I have a guy that's moving, you can have his spot. Well, that's not an option at that point, you know what I'm saying? So then it's just, it's a hard game, trying to find a place, to put stuff.
So theoretically, if the interim use permit was denied, you would be out of compliance and we could be subject to fines and everything.
Get to no fines, I would
Final
find a
question.
place.
My final question, you said you have a work facility, a work location? Must be locked, secure? No? Yes?
Yeah.
Oh. Why wouldn't you want to store these items there?
There's no room for them, it's just consider it like, well, what would we think nowadays? Like a retail strip center, but in a commercial area. You only get so much, so there's like 2,000 square feet of warehouse space, and then the office. You're not gonna get all that stuff in 2,000 square feet.
And that's the size
The
location you
inside
have?
storage area, right?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
There wasn't a consideration that the majority of this is going away by November. Would there be enough room in that 2,000 square feet to put the rest of it?
You'd be looking at 10 vehicles, you're not gonna get that in there.
So of all the stuff you're saying is gonna disappear, there's still be at least 10 vehicles? after the
10,
majority of
and I would
stuff?
say, well, it's on the list, it's gonna be like 4 trucks, 2 trailers, the Bobcats, the dump trailer.
So then you'd have 2 tractors, or one's a utility vehicle. 1 enclosed trailer, is that gonna go? And then, the 2 Bobcats, you said, yeah. But as far as like pickup trucks, you said you were getting rid of like 10 of them, right?
Right.
So there's 20 out there right now?
Well, there's like 17, maybe,
Okay.
or not that many, 14?
Whether it's 13, 17, 20, I
Where
don't
would
think
you
the-
put the shipping containers? If you're not allowed to do that here? Because they're not exactly something easy move.
And again, if you're not gonna allow them, I would have to figure something out. I mean, that's, you know what I'm saying, I'm not fighting the rules. I mean, if that's what you're gonna say, that's what you're gonna say, and I'll have to deal with that.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
It's listing these flatbed trailers and dump trailers, would there be equipment on those trailers, or is it just
No,
empty trailers?
empty trailer.
Well, I'm looking at your
Chair.
Yes, Mayor.
Ms. Bonlin, of these 17 or so trucks, how many of them are currently licensed?
Operable, all of them. Licensed, we have not for the last 2 years.
None of the 17 are licensed.
Correct, they've just been in storage. And, I mean, that truck that's sitting out front used to be a daily use truck. And it's just sitting up there by chance when the picture was taken, the one with the orange trailer. Yeah, that rig right there. And normally, if I put everything in the containers, most everything on that east sideline, all those plows, all that stuff, goes in those containers. I mean, none of that stuff would even be out there. Like I said, it's just all set out for moving day.
To the point of the auction, how much, do you have a list of the things you've now been freed up to sell? How many of those things will be in auction? Which is what you retain?
Anything the banker will give me title to, I'm getting rid of.
Do you have a list of that?
No, and again, I was hoping the banker was gonna have something to me today. Jeff said he would have my stuff today, but he did not call me or forward me anything.
And still looking at these findings and facts, I'm reading here that,
Should we go through them?
yeah, I think it'd be a good idea.
We can all voice our opinions.
Yes,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I mean, you could also table decision, but that's gonna prolong, you know, the existence of this stuff.
Well, there's gonna have to be dealt with. Let's face it, there's so many things illegally being done. According to our ordinance.
Mr. Chair, can I ask, just before I get into the details then?
Just go ahead, Mayor.
So lives on condition number 6, no inoperable, unlicensed vehicles shall be permitted on site. Why would you wait until November 15th for that to be?
Well, because I was suspecting that it was some of these ones he was getting rid of. So to come into compliance, he would need time to get them licensed, right?
Yeah.
And or remove them. I was just trying to be reasonable, I guess. And be consistent in a date for compliance.
Okay. Do you have to close the public hearing to do the findings?
You can close the public hearing if you'd like. You can close the hearing if you'd like, because everybody has spoken.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing at this time. Everybody's had a chance to.
Okay. So hours, 8 AM to 6 PM, Monday through Friday. Outdoor storage area is limited to 1/4 acre as shown on the site plan. Be located a minimum of 100 feet from the easterly lot line. The parking of vehicles and equipment in any outdoor storage is limited to the following: 4 pickup trucks, 2 flatbed trailers, 1 dump trailer, 2 bobcats with attachments. Do you know about how many attachments you have for your bobcats?
No, offhand, I would not.
I guess a dozen or 2 dozen?
No, I mean, there might be 8 different attachments between the 2 tractors.
Okay. So 1 tractor and 1 utility vehicle, 1 enclosed trailer is what I have, not including the containers. Is there anything else you can think of that has to?
Some of those last ones that.
Well, and again, I didn't want to get nailed down to exact specifics of which vehicles, because I don't know which titles I'm getting.
Well, we have to nail it down exactly,
Okay.
because otherwise, we don't, if I go out there and I don't have an exact list, I don't know if you're in compliance or not. So, we'll take a stab at it tonight. If it changes slightly at council, we can talk about it again, but if you don't have your stuff by then, I don't know that you'll get an answer, but, anything else you can think of right now? So, in reference to Mayor Pilon, there was 1 tractor, Mr. Mayor, up here on the picture, and then this utility vehicle. This is the enclosed trailer here.
The chipper.
Chipper, you said was going, I thought.
Should be. 'Cause I remember that being that first litigation.
Okay. What about the tank, these tanker things? Are those Do those have to stay, or do those?
The tank, well, the tank, again, like I said, I used to put those in the containers. I mean, like I said, I used to stuff all those tractors and bobcats, that chipper, used to put it all in the containers so that they were never out and about. I mean, they're not an eyesore. And I can't exactly say, the big 300 gallon tank is definitely staying. If I have to, I'll run it to the other yard and find a spot for it down at the shop. That, like I say, that red one, the little one, I plan on getting rid of.
How many gallons is the big one?
300.
Okay. And you said you were gonna get rid of some of the snow plows and stuff?
Correct.
This is one of the flatbeds.
That one's normally down at the shop.
There's one that's next to there.
Oh, there's one here, yeah.
It's a dumpster next to there.
Okay, well, we'll keep it at that for now, I guess. So any additional screening or fencing,
This is not gonna be permanent there.
this is not permanent. No, I mean, but you do have, the ability to ask for it. I mean, he's offering to move it away from the lot line, but
The way I understand it, we want that all removed by the 1st of May, right?
correct, yeah. That's the way it's written, yes.
Mr. Chair, so are you going to require any screening between now and the 1st of May to make a recommendation to pass this point?
That's a good stuff this time of year.
That's a good question.
Well, plantings wouldn't make sense because they're not gonna grow to the screening height, right? So it would either be a fence or allowing them to have one container or something, I don't know.
This ordinance says all outside storage shall be screened from view.
So we're looking at,
Well, let's get everything removed we can.
well, you could ask for a fence, and screening.
From the conversations of the neighbors that showed up and then the ones that wrote in, it sounds like they don't want permanent anything. They'd be fine with maybe a natural screening, maybe? But doing that before the end of the growing season right now is kind of silly. It's not gonna happen. Because whatever you put in, chances of it making it to a spring will be very slim. Especially if it has to be of any size.
Oh, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
There are trees that do get transplanted in fall, but we would, for screening, they'd have to be pines and of decent size.
And the care that goes into that, because they're big, they require a lot of TLC.
And my understanding is we do require from even commercial areas a certain amount of screening for storage areas, especially if they're in visible view of residential areas, which this is.
The thing that bothers me is we just made them clean up this mess down here. And this is worse than that mess down here. A lot worse than that. It should have never happened. We all agree it should have never happened. So let's get rid of it as soon as we can. Because it should have never happened, because he's in business, he should have knew he had to be in a commercial area for something like this. Because there's no reason why it happened. It was handy to do it, and so this is why it was done. And you know the mess we had over here. just got through cleaning up because of the same thing.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mayor.
again, for your consideration as a commission, I understand nobody's looking at permanent screening. And planting trees this time of year that will suffice is impractical. But you can require screening as part of your conditions, and if it's temporary fencing, it's temporary fencing. It can come down afterwards, or it's appropriate fencing. But again, the neighbors have said, this is what, you're talking in May, you're talking 7, 8 months now of looking at things, really uncertain how many things or how they'll be stored. If fencing is appropriate, it can be part of your conditions. They're making a request. The property owner is making a request on behalf of the lessee. But it's up to the commission to make a set of conditions. The conditions, are the material has to be out by a certain time, it has to be out by a certain time. If it's remaining, it has to be screened, it has to be screened.
But this is all the lawyer wants, is just set down dates that everything's gotta be removed, right?
Yeah, we could set a deadline date.
That's all we gotta do.
Well, and again, you abide by ordinances. He's just saying there's some lack of clarity in the intended purpose of this renting space in a building. And that anything that might be outside that is related to that home occupation. So you're still abiding by the rest of the ordinance. He's just saying that the gray area is the leasing part of it.
Okay, the gray area.
But you still have to abide by the rest of the ordinance as well.
Okay, if we're abiding by the rest of the ordinance, it's illegal to have it because he's supposed to be living there and he's also supposed to be part of the family. So ordinance requires that.
And the attorney's saying in this case, there's some gray area as to whether, even though that's what it says very clearly up front, whether they can lease something to somebody else for outdoor storage. But if that's the case, even if it's outdoor storage, there's still a requirement that says it needs to be screened.
And require a white screening fence, and he takes it with him when he leaves, I mean, you can go up to 7 feet without a permit. Or requires a permit for anything higher than that.
Screening like we have over here around the, we have here in the city, slats or what, just a
Well, you could do a regular fence, or
board fence?
That you can barely see through it.
yeah, you could
You could do like MDI has over here, like Berkeley has over
Chain
here.
link, yeah.
And MDI's got a really nice fence, you take it with you when you go.
So I guess my understanding then is we're setting forward all these dates and things that have to be moved. Obviously, the storage containers will have been there based on if they moved in May, they would have been there then 6 months on November 15th, which then they're supposed to be removed. Trailers and vehicles, if they have licenses and are operable, they can stay as long as this is approved through to May, is what I'm understanding.
right.
Mr. Chair, the ones that can stay are just the ones listed, so 4 can stay.
Yeah, the 4 to.
4 pickup trucks and, okay,
Yes.
anything licensed fits
Yeah.
within those numbers. Okay.
Would be the list, yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So, question maybe for Liz. If things were moved there in violation of the ordinance in the first place, do we have any obligation to approve an interim use permit at this time?
I would say at least 1/3 to 1/2 the request we get for an interim use permit start out at applicant.
Yeah.
They have the right to ask.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we're under no obligation. I mean, yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mayor.
do we have a copy of the lease?
We have not seen the lease from
So you're
between the.
dealing with a homeowner, home occupation, and the requirement is a lease. So what guarantees do you have when the homeowner has a lease to enforce any of this? And if there's no lease, then it goes back to, this is not a lessee situation, then it's not the owner's property or equipment. So without a lease, I think that's.
Yeah, very good.
That's what he's asking for.
Is that the only copy you have, John?
Yes, that's sure.
Okay. I, John Vondelin, agree to rent 1 acre of land for machine storage at 7411 181st Avenue, commencing April 1st, 2023 through May 31st, 2024, for the sum of $500 due the first of each month. Tenant agrees not to use property for any disorderly or unlawful purposes. Tenant agrees to transfer his interest in the property or sublet said acre to another person. Tenant acknowledges that he is responsible for obtaining any desired insurance for fire, theft, liability, etc. Tenant agrees that the owner, Karen Peony, or her heirs, Justin or Nathan Peony, are not liable for any damage, theft, or injury to tenants or the property due to occupancy of this land. Tenant shall not display any signs meant to conduct business. Okay. Well, do you have a written rental agreement? So I'll get a copy of that for the file.
That says April through the end of May.
That says May 31st as opposed to May 1st, yeah.
It started in April.
Starts in April, but nothing arrived until really after May 2nd. Sounds like Mother's Day.
That's what they're talking. Nothing got moved in because it's snow.
Yeah.
That contract's close to what you have what you have down here.
Yeah, very similar.
Road restrictions would be the only concern on the new first date right now. That's the only concern I have.
Oh, yeah, right.
Only thing I have for concern. Road restrictions.
But we can add as soon as well.
Yeah.
7 days after.
7 days following road restrictions. You got a plan put up and stuff?
Well, let's jump back to screening. Do we have support for a screening fence or not?
I don't know if the neighbors want it, because they want to see their natural environment, but
7 foot fence?
he can take it with him.
Yeah, but it's a 7 foot fence
Yeah,
and some kind of border fence.
yeah.
Where, just on the east side or what?
Mr. Chair, some sort of natural color.
Well, that would be a, wood fence or something. Chain link you can see through, so it's not really a screened fence.
Yeah, bright pink fences.
I know, it's protest bright yellow, I get it.
So where, just along the east side or what?
I think it needs to do a hook. If we want to shield things, I think it's got to do a slight hook.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, somehow, a little bit.
Is there a different spot on the property that would be better for the neighbors?
Looks like it's all trees.
No, really. That's about the only spot it could be.
He did talk about possibly moving it north to the north end. Is
It's
that
still
any
wide
better?
open.
Is that any better for the adjacent owners or not?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
The public hearing is closed, but we still have homeowners, property owners here to ask them that question.
Now, people, the property, especially
Miss
you,
Olson?
want it out in the front.
Howard and Parnell, the 3 owners?
Yeah.
Our question is about the screening of a fence, a 7-foot fence. Would there be any suggestions on what direction you may want the fence to actually be placed for screening, for hiding of this items until we all removed?
Or moving the whole area up to the north central or north, is that any better or worse? Based on the topography?
Could it be west of the house?
No, this is all steep slopes here.
Let's go to the north and.
Yeah, my view is is the containers. That's my direct view right now is some bright, whatever, red, I can see the containers. I mean, I can, yeah.
They should be out of there by November 3rd, or was it?
15.
November 13th, they have to be removed by then.
I don't understand if you've got unlicensed or illegal items up there, I don't understand why anything's staying.
Well, the thing is, our lawyer got involved, he said there's some things in our ordinance that's not clear.
Well, one of the conditions is that they do have to be licensed and operating.
Right.
The understanding is that he cannot license them without a title, and he's trying to achieve those items.
Yeah.
That's my understanding. So.
Personal opinion, I'd rather have it more to the north versus by the hook in the driveway. And 7-foot fence, I'd rather just see it gone, right? So that's a pretty big burden for him. I'll relieve him of that. Because if you put a 7-foot fence up, it's gonna cost him a few $1,000s. You're not, I don't want him to waste money, I'd rather see him get rid of this stuff. One thing I've been hearing though is her lease agreement versus door number. And they don't match up.
Right.
I'd like to see them match up.
Well, we can't
Lot
change.
size too.
Yeah. Well, her lease agreement's irrelevant if we're not allowing it to be
Okay.
there, then it has to
The only other thing about moving it to the north, I don't know where the septic system is for the house and all that. So there's issues there.
be. Is it a problem, Mr. Vondelin, driving across the field versus, being closer to the driveway?
Moving the equipment is not gonna be a problem. Originally, I was gonna go up to the north side. This is Peony wanted me at the hook in the driveway. So that is why the stuff was put there. Again, spread out because we just moved it there. I did not get a chance to make it look pretty. But yes, moving it over to that northwest side will not be a problem.
Like up in here?
Right.
Because that gets us also farther away from the east line and farther away from the Olson house. Okay.
Yeah, that would be ideal for us,
Okay.
as long as there's no more come in.
Right. Okay, so we're not going with any screening, then we're gonna move it up to the northwest. Basically, kind of straight north of the shed. So all outdoor storage of vehicles, trailers, machinery, etc., not belonging to the property owner have to be kept in the designated area. No inoperable or unlicensed vehicles or trailers shall be permitted on site. Any existing at the present time must be removed no later than November 15th. Storage containers are only permitted under the city code for a period of 6 months and must be removed by November 15th. The storage of landscape materials, including plants, wood chips, sand, dirt, gravel, rock, pavers, wall blocks, edging, pots, etc. All other hard or soft goods are prohibited. That does not sound like it's a problem. Objectionable noise, vibration, smoke, dust, electrical disturbance, odors, heat, or glare shall not be produced. No hazardous or toxic chemicals or waste shall be stored, generated, or discharged, including fertilizers and other lawn chemicals. There shall be no site uses which have a negative effect on the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the occupants of the surrounding area lands. Traffic conditions including noise, lights, location, or number of vehicles or parking on site are not a nuisance to adjacent landowners. I guess in that regard, it's good he doesn't come and go every day. The property shall be reviewed for compliance by the zoning administrator or building official upon notification to the city of non-compliance issues or complaints. Termination of the IUP will occur at the time the property is sold outside of the family. A change in ownership or occupancy of the principal use upon violation of any condition, discontinuation of the business or use, or no later than May 21st, 2024, whichever occurs first. Now, Ms. Perro mentioned road restrictions. If we get another real heavy snowfall, it could be beyond that. So you could say, add, 7 days after road restrictions come off, or 10 days after, something like that.
Mr. Chair,
Mayor.
what equipment is there that would be restricted by road restrictions?
Well, yeah,
Heavy equipment there?
well, you've got a point, because if containers is on this fall, they require a semi, but they would be gone. So, yeah, maybe there's really nothing that would require a
I'm
large.
looking at the list you have here, the only thing on there is some bobcats, but that's probably not road restriction. It's county road.
Yeah, that's a plus. Okay. Are we all okay with May 1st?
Now, on the objectionable side, if we have another snow year, it might take a couple more weeks for that stuff to melt out.
Sometimes it's frozen to the ground.
Well, I'm just
Is that what
saying,
you mean?
being that it's up in that far north corner, digging across that field to get, we'll call vehicles up there to move stuff at that date, may or may not be doable.
Then you probably want to get it out of there sooner.
And you will not like that dirt road that goes to your property is always washed out, always a mess on the screen.
Any other comments on the May 1st date?
Maybe just with the stipulation of the snow cover. Very well done in April.
Yeah, I don't know how you can do that.
Well,
but typically road restrictions do play a lot with the ground being thawed enough to do things.
You're talking
They really
first
do.
May, most of the key.
Yeah.
more what he was saying, getting across the field.
True, but road restrictions tend to be enough to get the ground thawed to have that weight on the roads.
That's all sand up there, ain't gonna bother nothing.
Well, in come the April council meeting, if we had a heavy snow at that time, we could talk about it, potentially. Okay, so all conditions have to be put into effect no later than November 15th. Or it shall terminate unless a request is submitted to the city in writing no less than 30 days prior, which would be October 15th. So we need to find out about your titles and such. City council may revoke an inter-use permit upon violation of any condition, any city ordinance, any law of the state of Minnesota or of the United States, any change involving structural alterations, enlargement, intensification of the use or similar change not specifically permitted shall require an amended IEP processed in the same manner as a new application. The IEP shall remain in effect until May 1st, 2024, as long as conditions agreed upon are observed. But nothing shall prevent the city council from enacting or amending official controls to change the status of the interim district. Okay. Applicants are responsible for all costs associated with the processing of this request. Okay.
Okay. I think, are we all okay with these findings of facts? The only thing I'm not sure, what was it, two we added?
To what?
To the list of things that you have.
We had one enclosed trailer. One enclosed trailer, one tractor and one utility vehicle. And one tanker, 300-gallon tanker trailer. Ms. County, are you in agreement? Were you able to hear all those conditions?
I'm gonna have to read them all later.
Okay, will you try to attend the city council meeting on October 10th?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll send you by mail a revised version. I don't think you have email, do you? Okay.
I need a copy of my lease.
Yes, you can, yeah, I'll just take a photo of it before you
You have
go.
a copy machine in here?
Not here, but I'll take a photo before you walk out, okay?
Okay, we need to make a motion for the findings of facts.
Sure. Yeah, we'll come.
Go ahead.
Liz, did you have the,
According to the dates.
100-foot setback from the north line on that item there?
Oh, yeah, because they're changing it.
It wouldn't be as big of a deal there, because you're a quarter mile, more than a quarter mile away from the closest house.
Okay.
But you're not supposed to store, I mean, technically you should be 20 feet back. That's a good point though, because you should meet the setback for accessory buildings.
20 foot.
Yeah, 20 foot. I'll add that.
Is that then changed to a quarter acre?
Yeah, quarter acre.
It says quarter acre on number 2.
Okay.
Anything else we need to add to this? Seeing none, I'll make a motion, we accept these findings of fact. Make a motion to accept these. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Pearl? Commissioner Piccolo, seconded it. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
One opposed? One opposed.
One opposed? Okay. Motion by Dale, second by Dan, right? Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Here's your lease agreement. So October 10th will be the city council, okay? October 10th.
Okay, we'll go to item 4 here, start on that list.
Oh, Mr.
That's
Chair?
9 o'clock.
Yes.
That's 9 o'clock.
We'll take it.
It is. Isn't that fun?
It is, okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Do I have permission to schedule a public hearing for the septic ordinance for next month? You can still make changes, but all the changes in yellow were what we talked about and what you recommended last month. The only thing really still up for debate about it was the, installation of systems by property owners.
Yes.
But we could talk about it next time if you'd like.
If we, I think if we put it out there for a public hearing, Mr. Chair, I believe if we put it out for a public hearing, we might get some said feedback from our fellow community maybe, hopefully.
It would be nice to make sure you're finished with it for the public.
Well, but still. All right, well, whatever you want to do is fine, I just threw it out there. We're gonna have a couple agenda items anyway.
Should we finish at the next meeting then and have a public hearing the following month?
Did anyone have any glaring comments that they wanted to talk about or not? I mean, any changes?
I didn't. They were talking about this, we were last month.
No, okay. Okay, well, we'll just save it then. I mean, the goal is to try to get it done before, so we can send notices in the spring.
We need one more motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. B. Made motion, think they second.
Second.
I got two seconds. Take your pick. Please adjourn.
I will not be at the next meeting.